We are stepping into a new era for the Washington Commanders.
We weren't good enough this year. We didn't get it done on the field, and so we've decided to go into a new direction.
Nobody knows what our next journey is, for him, for me. It could be back here, it could be somewhere else, but just got to be prepared for it.
WUSA9 was first to confirm with the Commanders that the team is parting ways with the 30th coach of the franchise, Ron Rivera.
Part of the business. That's what happens when you have a season like this. When you're the leader of the ship, somebody has to go down with it.
Signs of hope for fans and players.
I want to win. I've been, here, and I've weathered a lot of storms here, and I want to be a winner.
Change is not always a bad thing.
I'd like to see a young, offensive-minded coach.
After dealing with Dan Snyder for so long, you kind of got to have hope in anybody at this point.
Our team is covering every angle of this change of command. But first, WUSA9 News at 4 starts on the Weather Watch. Our team of meteorologists is tracking wet weather that could be dangerous.
WUSA9 Weather Watch Alert is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan.
And thank you for being here with us on this Monday afternoon. I'm Lorenzo Hall.
And I'm Simone Alba. Our team of meteorologists is tracking potentially life-threatening weather in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, that's right. So here are 4 things that you need to know about this dangerously wet weather heading our way. First up, this storm will impact a lot of people in our region. Second, we can expect strong winds. And third, there will be heavy rain. And lastly, with all of the rain and wind, we can expect coastal flooding too.
It's a lot to unpack right now, but let's get straight to meteorologist Caitlin McGrath, who's been timing this storm out. Caitlin?
That's right, you guys. This is a high-impact storm crossing the country, bringing blizzard conditions to the Great Plains, a significant, rare January severe weather threat to the south and east. Right now, we have tornado warnings coming out of this storm system in Texas, flood warnings down closer to New Orleans, and it's all going to move into our area as we look ahead to our Tuesday forecast. Our biggest threats are going to be some locally damaging wind, flooding, and some heavy rain. This is 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, so unless you're commuting really early in the day, plan on wet roads for your morning commute. And yes, for areas along and west of I-81, it does look to start as a wintry mix. Some wet snowflakes earlier in the morning, transitioning over to a period of ice before eventually everyone ends up with rain by the late morning hours. This is 9 a.m. And as the rain moves in, it will be generally light to moderate. The heaviest rain rolls in shortly after lunchtime. This is 1 p.m. You can see the map lighting up with those shades of orange and yellow, indicating that locally heavy rain that will continue throughout the afternoon. This is 4 or 5 o'clock. We could even see a few embedded thunderstorms as we look ahead through the second half of Tuesday before all of that rain clears out later Tuesday night. This is 9 p.m. The heavy rain will be clearing out. The wind will still be whipping, and that flood threat will stick around as we head through the overnight hours. So my biggest concern for tomorrow really does look to be the wind. We're talking about widespread winds gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour, some locally higher wind gusts possible. That's enough to cause widespread tree and possibly power outage issues. So make sure you charge your devices tonight in the event that you do lose power tomorrow. The strongest wind expected shortly after lunchtime through about 10 o'clock tomorrow night. And in addition to the heavy rain with a street and river and stream flooding threat, also watching a big coastal flood threat. That wind's going to be cranking in from the south and east, pushing water onshore from the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River. And we're also talking about a widespread 1 to 3 inches of rain when all is said and done. We'll take you hour by hour through when the worst of the weather moves through your area and talk about much nicer weather on the horizon beyond it.
Okay, Caitlin, thank you. And with that said, if you don't have it already, now's a good time to download our WUSA9 app. It's exactly what you need ahead of a day like tomorrow. So just point your phone's camera at that QR code. If you're holding it right now, a link should pop up. The app will send push alerts right to your device so you know what's coming to your neighborhood.
Now to a story you first heard just before 8:30 this morning right here on WUSA9. The Commanders are parting ways with Ron Rivera. WUSA9 was the very first outlet to confirm with the Commanders that head coach Ron Rivera is being relieved of his duties as of this morning. Both on TV, then on the WUSA9 app. We jumped on air at 8:22 this morning. An alert was sent out just a minute later.
Yeah, and Commanders owner Josh Harris wrapped up a news conference at around 1:30 today, giving us a look at his game plan. Right now, our sports anchor Chick Hernandez joins us in studio with his response and perspective. And Chick, we knew this was coming, but this team has surprised us in the past, and it hits a little differently now that it's official. Huh?
Yeah, look, Lorenzo, I said it last night. It was a matter of time for Josh Harris and the ownership group to make a coaching change. A little over 12 hours after the Commanders lost to Dallas to end their season at 4-13, Harris met with Ron Rivera and let him know they were parting ways. Rivera then was given the opportunity to address the team one more time, where he thanked them for the chance to be their coach. After Rivera spoke, Harris then addressed the team, telling him of their plan. A whirlwind time for the new ownership group. Look, Harris grew up here. He wants a winner just as much as the fan base because he's one of them.
Yeah, listen, this was not a fun season for the ownership group. I mean, we're right there with the fans in terms of sweating every loss. And so, I mean, obviously, if we could write the script, it would be a quick turnaround. But on the other hand, you have to make long-term decisions and do things in a very, one person at a time, one athlete at a time. And so sometimes they take longer, right? So I think what my view is that we want it to be as quick as we can, but the ultimate goal, right, is to be an elite team that's competing for championships.
So he's saying there's a plan. What a concept. Last title was 1992. I know. The franchise of futility will now try to turn that tide. Also on the scene today at Commander's Park was my colleague Desmond Purnell. And while the head coach was moving his stuff out of the office, the players were doing the very same thing.
Chick, today was clean out day. I spoke to a number of Commander players as they were cleaning out their lockers, and many of them told me that they were expecting to hear today's news, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. Ron Rivera met with the players around 9 this morning to inform the team he was relieved of his head coaching duties. Again, many of the players said they saw this coming. Many of them told me this change was necessary, but Coach Rivera gave a lot of these men opportunities when others did not. That includes first-round draft pick Emmanuel Forbes Jr.
Well, your initial response when you heard the news about Ron Rivera?
I hate for anybody to lose their job. That's how he support his family and things. But, it's a business, and we just got to go the opposite direction.
Have you had a chance to speak with Ron Rivera, and if so, how did that conversation go?
Yeah, I talked to him, and he was just like, even if he ain't here, just prove why he drafted me here and just show everybody wrong, honestly.
Forbes also told me that owner Josh Harris spoke to the team this morning, said he sounds passionate about reviving this organization. Coming up at 5, we'll hear more reaction from the players. Chick, it's obvious that this team, they do respect Ron Rivera, but in the same breath, they seem excited to turn the page.
Des, thank you. So Josh Harris said today he hopes to have a head of football operations in place before they hire a head coach, but that timing might be squeezed as coaching candidates become available. So here are some of the candidates we have deemed viable for the position of 31st head coach in franchise history. Ben Johnson, 37-year-old offensive coordinator for the playoff-bound Detroit Lions. The Lions currently have the 3rd-ranked offense in the NFL. He coached Sam Howell, by the way, in the Senior Bowl 2 years ago. The team doesn't draft a quarterback with the number 2 pick. Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's defense ranked 6th in this season. He's got 8 years vested in Baltimore. Frank Smith, 42-year-old offensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins. They own the number 1 offense in the league. Got a lot of weapons, but keep in mind Washington will have that number 2 pick in the draft, and right now 6 picks in the first 102 selections. That's some draft capital there. And how about Raheem Morris, 47 years old? 3rd year as the defensive coordinator with the Rams, but he was here in Washington as the DB's coach 2012 to 2015. And the players really liked him. Didn't want to see him go. Stick with me here. Jim Harbaugh, kind of busy right now. Michigan coach, playing for a national title tonight. Last coached in the NFL 9 years ago, but led San Francisco to the Super Bowl before losing to his older brother John with the Ravens. Maybe he wants a little brotherly payback. And Anthony Weaver, 43 years old, associate head coach and defensive line coach for the Ravens. Reports have the Harris ownership group showing interest in all the men I just mentioned. Requests have gone out to speak with them. Again, the Commanders have not confirmed any of the names on this list. Now, some are getting ready for the playoffs, so there are rules in place for that. You can only interview virtually before the end of the divisional playoff games on January 21st. If they want a second interview, well, then it's the team that's in the Super Bowl. You can do that interview during the bye week. It gets all convoluted.
All right, so how quickly could the team name a new coach with all that said? We heard Josh Harris say he wants this to move quickly, but he also wants to be thorough.
Yeah, he's going to be thorough. So I think they're going to – it's really hard to say, Lorenzo, because those guys are busy right now. So I think they're going to take their time a little bit, see who all the candidates are. This is the beginning of Black Monday, by the way, right? So there's a lot of coaches that are available and some young coordinators who are still looking for a job, a head job, while coaching teams. So it's It's
So
really
like
hard
months,
to tell.
Huh? It's going to go on for months. It sounds like,
No,
yeah.
no, won't be months for head coach.
Okay.
Because you got to get right to it with the OTAs and everything else, and get ready for the combine and the draft, which is April 25th.
Well, you touched on, I mean, the major allure of having that, second round pick kind of dangling as a incentive.
Yeah, and $90 million worth of cap space, by the way.
Yeah, that too. Right.
And an ownership group, by the way, if I can just say this, and an owner who, it was great to listen to him speak and understand what he was saying and make sense.
Yeah.
Hasn't been here for like the last 20 years.
Okay.
All right, Chick.
In the meantime, Chick, the Commanders' search for a new coach will be the talk of the office, water coolers, and sports radio airwaves for sure.
Boy, will it, right? As our Eric Flack found out, well, fans are already debating what kind of coach they think is best to lead the team.
Fans tailgating at FedEx Field Sunday afternoon were talking about the Commanders' next head coach before Ron Rivera even finished his final game.
I want a leader of men, a guy who can make every single player feel wanted.
Longtime season ticket holder Chuck Fanslow,
6 pieces of cheese,
is one of many we spoke with, who wants owner Josh Harris to have his new GM be part of the coaching decision.
Do you trust in Josh Harris and his regime to pick the right next leader?
He has a history of success in professional sports. I guess it all depends on who he ultimately picks as like the general manager and the people that will pick the coaches and so on and so forth. After dealing with Dan Snyder for so long, you kind of have hope in anybody at this point.
I love that Josh Harris and this ownership group are not going to rely on their own acumen as Dan Snyder did so many times.
Grant Paulson is a Commanders insider and co-host of the Grant and Danny sports radio talk show on 106.7 The Fan. He said Harris's hiring of 2 former GM as advisors in the GM and coaching search is a good sign for fans. And when it comes to the next head coach, Paulson says recent history in the NFL shows offense is the way to go.
Over the last 20 plus years, offensive-minded coaches win more often. This year in Washington's conference in the NFC, 6 of the 7 teams making the playoffs, head coach was an offensive coordinator.
Fans seem to agree.
Offense, offense, offense. I want to score. I think that's the way that the NFL is going right now.
No retread coaches, someone fresh.
One name that has been connected to the Commanders that could change fans' take on an up-and-coming offensive-minded head coach is Jim Harbaugh, as Chick mentioned, who has won in both college and the pros throughout his decades-long career. Now, Simone, I heard you guys talking about the timeline, and coming up next hour, we're actually going to lay out the NFL's new guidelines on how and when coaching candidates can be interviewed.
I mean, this is such a crucial off-season, right? I think everyone is just chomping at the bit to get some forward momentum, and we're getting there.
Yeah,
we're on our way.
Making the right decision is better than making the quick decision.
I think that's well said. Eric, thank you. Okay. Well, this brings to a close the Ron Rivera era here in Washington. Rivera was hired in January of 2020. His contract was for $35 million over the span of 5 years. Well, over his 4 seasons in Washington, Rivera had 26 wins, 40 losses, and 1 tie. He led the team to 1 playoff appearance in 2020, and he had 8 starting quarterbacks over his 4 seasons.
And as Washington begins a new chapter, we wanted to know, what do you want to see in the next head coach? Text us your thoughts at that number right there, 202-895-5599, and we will show your responses coming up at 4:30.
Of course, you can trust our team to be the first to bring you confirmed, accurate information directly from the Commanders on air and online at WUSA9.com. If you scan this QR code, you'll get all of our team coverage on WUSA9.com. Right now, you'll find our list of likely coaching candidates. You'll also watch Josh Harris's full news conference with reporters. We also have Ron Rivera's thank you message to the fans and a look back at Rivera's record.
All right, in the meantime, still ahead here tonight on the news at 4 o'clock, we have a rare look into a family's fight to save a young Alexandria boy from fentanyl abuse, how he's recovering and his push for a better future.
Then a mid-air mishap. We have new details into what caused this scary moment on board an Alaska Airlines flight. Caitlin?
And Simone, I'm tracking a strong storm that will impact both your morning and your Tuesday evening commute. And in addition to the rain, we're talking some really strong wind. I'll show you where we have the highest chance to see power outages and tree damage coming up in my forecast.